Kia ora mai tātou, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Long-Term Annual Plan Subcommittee of the 27th of March. Please make yourself known to the emergency procedures on the screen, and if you do have your mobile phone, if you can make sure that's switched to silent mode. We'll move through to item number 1, which is our opening karakia. Please feel free to join me. Whakatakatahau ki te uru, whakatakatahau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai, e hiaki ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu, ti hei, mauri ora. Great. Moving through to apologies. I believe we've got a full house. Public comment. I don't believe we've got any members of the public who wish to speak, so straight on to item 4, which is conflict of interest declarations. Do we have any conflicts? Councillor Shaw.
I'm currently undergoing a subdivision feasibility study for my property.
Okay, no, should be okay with this particular meeting. That's right. Any other conflict of interest declarations? No. Okay. Moving through to item 5, which is recommendations to council. The first item is the draft long-term plan and consultation materials on page 5 of the agenda. So Richard, welcome. Good to see you. And John Whittle, who's the Audit Director from Audit New Zealand, will also speak to this item, but I'll pass it over to you, Richard. Thanks.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, elected members, for this opportunity to present you with the draft LTP and consultation document. So the purpose of today is to seek your approval on the draft LTP and consultation material ahead of public consultation beginning on next Tuesday, on the 2nd of April. It is also for you to receive the audit opinion that will be attached to the consultation document. And at this point, I just want to thank John and his team from Audit New Zealand for the work they've done in helping support the development of this plan and interrogating it with us in terms of making sure we're meeting all the requirements. So thank you, John. Since we last presented to the committee on the 20th of February this year, there's been a lot of work undertaken to incorporate your feedback, to design and review the documents and to work through the audit process. We've supplied you through the supplementary papers with the draft long-term plan, the consultation document and the survey. In the paper that you've got, we've also highlighted the key changes and decisions that have been made. The LTP working group decisions are provided on table 2, and the budget and funding changes that we've made are attached as Appendix 5 of your report. I just want to say that this has been a long and detailed process to develop the long-term plan and consultation material, and I want to acknowledge your input and the direction we've received from elected members. I also want to take 5 seconds to just acknowledge the work across the council, particularly Jenny, Deepa and Alicia from the finance team, the comms and engagement team through Vicky and Shelley, and then the corporate planning team through Wendy and Harmon. This has been my first experience of a long-term plan, and it really is the analogy of taking a village to raise a long-term plan rings true here. In terms of the next steps, consultation will be running from the 2nd of April to the 3rd of May. You'll be receiving either this afternoon or tomorrow morning, depending on how many changes we have to make following this meeting. You'll receive the toolkit that will help support you. Hearings will be running from the 15th to the 17th of May. I just want to point out that there is a tiny error in paragraph 29. It's not 2004, it will be 2024, the hearings. So apologies for that. And then the final LTP will be presented to Council on the 27th of June for adoption. So we're continuing to review the documents and make minor edits prior to publication, and we look forward to hearing your feedback and the discussion today. I'm now going to hand over to John Whittle for his presentation of the audit opinion.
Thank you for that, Richard. So we have completed our work to be in order to issue our audit opinion. So just firstly, thanks as well to the management team from Council in helping us get this far. It has certainly felt like a lot more condensed process this cycle around, and there's been a lot of pressure on everybody to make sure that we could meet the timelines. Our audit opinion that we plan to issue is an unmodified audit opinion, and what that means is that in our opinion, the consultation document does provide an effective basis for public participation in the council's decision about the proposed content of what's in the 10-year plan. And our opinion is such because it fairly presents the matters that are proposed for inclusion in the plan, and then identifies and explains the main choices facing the council and the city and the consequences of those choices. In addition to that, we have reviewed the underlying information and the assumptions which that is built on, and we consider those to be reasonable. So overall, our opinion is unmodified. We have included two emphasis of matters which don't modify our opinion in any way. These are quite similar to the previous LTP, although the wording is quite different. The first one is around the uncertainty about the Three Waters renewal forecasts. So council's approach is predominantly to follow an age-based renewal forecasting approach. There are risks in following such an approach, particularly where you have constrained that view on affordability. So the renewals are not at the level they would be if you could afford to pay for everything that is coming due in terms of its age. Our emphasis of matter draws attention to where this is disclosed in the consultation document by council, and we also raise the increased risk around what such an approach does pose for, one, the level of forecast renewals into the future. They may be higher, they may be lower. We also raise the risk that this can result in unplanned, unexpected asset failures and additional work and impacts to level of service. In addition to that emphasis of matter, we include another emphasis of matter which highlights council's disclosure around the overall level of the capital program in this LTP. So this has increased substantially from the previous LTP. In deciding the fundamentalness of the increase, we do look backwards towards council's achievement over the last 3 years leading up to this plan, and that's been really good and improved from the previous LTP. So council has done a lot in terms of working with Wellington Water, etc., to deliver better in the plan. But looking forward, there is a substantial increase of more than 100% going forward, and with such an increased level of capital program, there's an inherent risk that council may not be able to deliver that. It's got a lot of dependencies in delivering that program. If it weren't able to deliver the program, again, it comes with risks, and council has disclosed that, including unplanned impacts to service level and greater costs as projects, etc., may move further down the line. So both of those items are, in our view, adequately disclosed in the consultation document. So the purpose of including them in our report is just to bring a reader's attention to those so they could review those disclosures if they wanted to. The rest of the audit opinion just deals with the responsibilities of both parties, but I'll probably leave it there and see if there's any questions for us.
Thank you, John. So just to clarify, the audit opinion will now be added to the consultation document, and that will go out and be circulated. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Thank you, John. First of all, is there any questions for John from an auditor perspective? No? Okay, all pretty straightforward. Any questions for Richard? Councillor Mitchell, then Councillor Salinger.
These questions cover the draft long-term plan and consultation documents.
Go ahead with your question at this stage. Yep.
Well, they do. Mine do, so I'm happy to wait if that's not what we're discussing now.
We go for it.
Okay, thank you. And thank you to officers for all the work that's gone into these documents. They are looking really good, and for the most part, I'm very happy with them. I do have a few questions which relate to my understanding, I guess, of some of the discussions we've had and decisions we've made, and also some things we haven't discussed actually in putting this plan together. There's a huge amount of work that's gone in from officers and from us as elected members. So I just have a few questions, a few things to ask about. And first, I'd like to acknowledge officers again for listing some of the difficult decisions we made about savings. They're on the top of page 30, bullet point listed in there, which is something I asked for the last time we discussed this document. So it's good to see that transparency in there. There's one in particular I just wanted to check my understanding of, because this decision was made a long time ago in November in a meeting that was closed to the public, and we've only just seen the minutes of that meeting and what it looks like in this long-term plan. And that's the decision. It says in the draft long-term plan to discontinue the after-school program to WOW. My recollection, and I went back and checked on the agenda of that meeting, which I hope I can discuss what was mentioned, proposed to us in that agenda. So reading from the agenda from 27th of November, the proposal put to us was to reduce the Te Wao program for rangatahi, to disestablish the Nainai base, which kids in Nainai still call the Nainai Clubhouse, and replace it with programming across neighbourhood hubs and other spaces. So I guess the key word for me in there was to reduce the Te Wao program. And now in our draft long-term plan, we say we're going to discontinue the program, which is a very different proposition. My understanding certainly was that the program, and there has been a shift in recent years from places to programs, that the program would continue. There's been a lot of work to develop it over the last couple of years. So I was just wondering if someone could clarify for me what it is that we are proposing to do with the Te Wao program.
Yeah, suggest Andrea, if you wanted to respond to that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. The Te Wao program is broader than just the base in Nainai. It is the guidance and the strategy for all of our programming and activity that we have for rangatahi. So in reducing it, the reducing part is the base in Nainai, but the programming that we're going to deliver through our neighbourhood hubs will continue to be led by the Te Wao kaupapa.
Thank you. That was my understanding of it. The text in the draft long-term plan says we will discontinue the program, so I think that might be a mistake in the wording there. A couple of other things that I caught on reading through, actually about things that we haven't discussed really in making decisions for this long-term plan, haven't been asked for decisions on. One is cycling and micro-mobility, and I flagged the last time we saw drafts of these documents that program didn't run the full length of our long-term plan. And still in the consultation document, it runs till 2031. And now in the detail of capital projects for transport, it shows no spending beyond 2031. In our last long-term plan, I think it was originally proposed to just put 3 years of funding in there, but we put 10 years of funding in there to show to our cycling community that we were actually committed to a full program of work that was detailed in a business case. That's always been my position, that we're committed to that full program of work. What seems to have happened here is that the full program hasn't been carried over. The program runs beyond 2031. It was always intended to, but there's no funding for those last 3 years. It's basically the decision of the last long-term plan is reflected here. We haven't been asked not to fund the subsequent 3 years or to fund the subsequent 3 years, but my assumption, as with most other programs in here, that was that officers would just continue the funding for something that we had agreed to. So I was just wondering if an officer could comment on that.
John, would you like to cover that one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Councillor. So your officers are intending to obviously continue with the program. The works that have been done up until now have cost more money than what was expected, so that will impact on the back end of it. But we're just working through, as councillors will know, the funding side of things with Waka Kotahi and the new GPS. So as to what funding we're going to get over the next couple of years. So we'll then have, if there's no government funding for some of these aspects, then some of our funding will need to be pushed further out, or council would make a call on spending stuff without the additional money.
Jenny, did you want to elaborate to that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I suggest, Mr. Mayor, that officers come back with some further advice, after the consultation period? We'll have more information around the GPS settings. And so we could provide that advice on the 17th of May. There's a meeting then to help inform final decisions for the LTP.
Thank you. And just one more similar one, actually, with an end date that's not 2034. And this is something that we did discuss, and again, my recollection might not be in full, and it's in the consultation document on page 394, subdivision roading improvements. It says here 2024 to 32. So again, that's not a full 10 years of investment. I can't remember what we discussed in terms of a time frame for that program, but obviously the impact of subdivisions on our roads is going to continue all the way through the next 10 years, and I imagine, and beyond.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor. So, the intention is for that to go for the full 10-year period. So,
So that's the date, I think, Richard, in the consultation document. Thank you. And one more question, which is for Jenny. I think there's a growing awareness amongst our residents that we're taking on a lot of debt over the next period, and also an awareness of the cost of servicing that debt. Just looking at the, it's always been in this plan, the over 10 years, how we expect to spend your rates on operating funding. There isn't a distinct category in there that's about the costs of servicing debt. I assume that means it's kind of included in each of the categories there. Is there a way we can say somewhere that there is quite a cost of servicing debt that's included in these amounts?
Yes, so you're correct that the interest costs are allocated to the activities that they relate to. I think in the finance content from memory, we do have commentary around the higher cost of borrowings. So I think that's probably sufficient, but we can have a look at, see if there's anywhere else that may be appropriate to add some more words along those lines.
Maybe if it was even a note to that particular diagram or whatever it is that said that the cost of servicing debt for the capital program are included. Thank you.
And I know that is a challenge right across the board, and there is some data that backs that up from the independent report that our Gen Z commissioned as well. Yep, which just might be helpful context for people. Yeah. Okay, so we've gotten into the document and aspects of that. So we've got Councillor Stallinger, but happy to just open it up for questions on that if officials are happy. But if there's, I just want to check if there's any more questions for John. Otherwise, we'll let him escape. I'm sure he's got plenty to do. So any other questions particularly for John? Councillor Stallinger?
Just one, and I think John's answer may help me both in terms of considering these consultation documents and others, because you'll be aware I've raised some questions in the past about kind of balance when we're talking about savings, but not necessarily controllable costs which are moving. And I guess I've always been unclear as to what degree we can present something in a way which is free to us, and particularly yourself and our Chief Executive as the authors of the introductory commentaries, as distinct from our requirement to present like an almost unbiased, fair and balanced intro to our plans and consultation documents. So my reason for asking the question of Mr. Whittle is because, in his audit opinion, he's required to attest to the material fairly representing what we're about. And so that's the kind of area of my question. But particularly in this case, I focused in on it because we do talk about savings of 35 million, which we all went through, a very good process and achieved those, which was excellent. But at the same time, we're aware that while we have, in effect, provided savings of that amount, with a far bigger glove, we've reached out and required additional expenditure for things such as more staff and so on, which aren't mentioned in our introductory. So my question, if I can just summarise it then, is do you feel that in circumstances such as that nevertheless the document presents a fair picture for our citizens?
So maybe I'll just touch on that briefly. I think, looking at the forward, in addition to myself, there's a number of other people that review the document from OAG as well, and have reached the same kind of conclusion that we do think it is fair and balanced. I think the forward does pick up on the main issues facing the community. You'll find, I guess in our view, there is the CD document after that strings those together nicely in terms of highlighting the very different economic situation in which the council finds itself this time, the inflationary costs, the need to invest more in infrastructure. So I think those are quite clear as the big issues. And a lot of councils, from my understanding, have pursued cost savings. in order to balance off the rate impacts of some of those decisions, including smoothing, those decisions around rate impacts further along the way. So I think in terms of achieving that, it does highlight those issues, and that's what the CD focuses on later on. So I think those are the key issues at hand. So I do think it presents that.
Thank you. Any other questions for John? Okay, John, we'll let you escape. Thank you very much for your time. And we'll open it up for, obviously, Richard and the wider team for any other questions that we have on the totality of the document that we've got in front of us. Anything else from members? We'll start from the right. So Deputy Mayor Lewis and Councillor Dyer.
I've just lost my page, but surprise, it's on the Petone Wharf consultation part. Just in the options, there's two things there that refer to budget, and they've both got X's against them, but it's just the way they're worded. One's got will significantly change, and the other one's just plainer. I think they both need to be the same, because we don't know the answer.
Through you, Mr. Chair, we'll have a look at that, but we've actually worked through it quite closely. So, yeah, we'll take that away and consider if we can change it.
Councillor Dyer.
Kia ora, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I won't try and wordsmith things, so I've just got a couple of things to highlight which might be incorrect or could just be explained slightly better. Page 366, that third tick we've got. I'm sure Wellington City Council would love to claim that they had some involvement in our dog park, but I think it might be a typo that it wasn't a joint venture. So yeah, obviously removing that bit, but there may be somewhere else that they were a joint venture, that wording was meant to have gone there instead. So just having a look at that one. Under the 2023 bullet points, and I appreciate we've seen the draft of this before, but once you sort of visually see it, it kind of makes it a bit easier to read. There's no mention of Te Poto Hotonuku, and obviously that's quite a significant project that got underway in that time period, as well as delivering the first section of it. Just wondering if it was a conscious effort or a conscious decision not to include Te Poto Hotonuku in the highlights. Like in my mind, it trumps every single one we've got there in that list.
Thank you for that. So Te Poto Hotonuku is underway, and it will be delivered over stages. We were also trying to balance the highlights over the 3 years, and we had quite a lot from the 2023 period. So we feel that Te Poto Hotonuku will come through in future years, but we will take that away, and I'll talk with the team about whether we can reflect that. But there is an element of space as well.
Here we go. Yeah, I had thought that may be the case, but like we do mention that we began construction on Nanaia Pool in the year before. This one we've already delivered part of the section. And in terms of dollar value, it's higher than all of those things, but we'll leave that with the team. Page 388, we've got the key infrastructure investments, and it sort of starts off by saying, here are the major projects we're investing in as part of our plan for the 10 years. And then you read the Petone one, and it says, we are looking at a number of options for prioritising and investing and maintaining these assets under the heading of wharf. Obviously, both the proposals, we're not looking at prioritising or investing or maintaining these assets. We're proposing to demolish them. So just the wording on that and the heading up the top probably needs a bit of tweaking. Over the page on 394, sorry, a few pages, where we list all the transport infrastructure projects. The very last one, Riverlink, has a figure there of $180 million, which is our share. All the other projects prior to this have had the total project cost there, and then the sub-note sort of says we're splitting this 50-50, or Wakatahi, sorry, NZTA, is paying some of it, whereas this one here only has our share and sort of says, it does say in the subtext, this is an alliance project, but I just think people that are glossing over this is sort of a bit of a discrepancy between there. So maybe just highlighting that slightly better would be quite useful for people. And then page 401, where we list out the development contribution policy. In the draft we saw of this, it did have a tag there that the district-wide numbers had already been included in the catchment areas. So just wanted one clarification that that's still the case, but two, whether there needs to be some text there that says the district-wide figure is actually already calculated in those catchments. And I see Dwayne's online, maybe he can help. Yeah, because the reading of how it is now graphically portrayed doesn't look like that, but that's not my understanding of it, but I could be wrong.
We do have Dwayne, so I see you've just unmuted yourself, Dwayne, so happy to answer that.
Yeah, happy to. The table says the charge per EHU includes the district-wide charges. So I'm just a bit unsure where the ambiguity is coming in.
So this is page 41 of the CD, page 401 of the full document.
Apologies, in the CD, not in the policy itself.
I think in the policy it might be right, just in the CD, it's just sort of listed there as a separate catchment, and it says we'll pay DC per EHU development will pay in each catchment, and people could read that as well. I'm in Wainui catchment and I'm a district-wide catchment. Do I add these two numbers together? In the draft we saw, it had a subtext sort of saying the district-wide is already taken into account, and then I kind of question why do we even list out the district-wide if it's already added into those other numbers? Do we have to list it out on this document?
To be fair, you probably raise a good point. I mean, I'll defer to the CD authors and who know about the space constraints and things like that they're trying to work with, but it would seem like it's an easy thing to fix with either a footnote or something else.
If I can jump in, yes, we can have a look at that. I think it does need a little footnote and be a bit clearer. And the resolutions do enable the chief executive to have minor editorial changes, so we can do it under that.
And the only final one for me was on page 422 in the actual feedback form itself. Just the wording of question 11, I really struggle with it. It's a really, really long sentence, and I'm technically an author of this document, and even I kind of question what are we actually asking people there. So maybe just if we could have a look at that. This is the fees and charges question. Rate your level of agreement or disagreement with council's proposal that those who use our facilities or receive services provided should pay an appropriate share of the costs involved through fees and charges. Yeah, it could be as similar as like, do you agree with the fees and charges on page XYZ of the consultation document?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for that. We'll have a look at that and see if we can make it less than half a page.
Okay, the only one that I just would go back to, Councillor Dyer, is page 388, your comment on the Batoni description of the Batoni items. I don't see an issue with that. So I just wanted to understand what your concern was again. Is that?
Yeah, 388. So it talks about what we're investing in, key infrastructure investments, we're investing in the future, and then under the heading Batoni Recreational Ground, Grandstand, Library and Wharf, we say these key projects are in poor condition and need significant investment. We're looking at a number of options of prioritising, investing and maintaining these assets. Obviously, we're demolishing Batoni Wharf.
Yeah, but I mean, that does accurately describe what we're doing. I mean, just because, you know, it's saying we are looking at a number of options for prioritising, investing in and maintaining these. So a number of options include not, you know, demolishing. I mean, that's, I just think we're dancing on the head of a pin if we start to try and wordsmith some of these things.
Yeah, I just think both the options we're proposing are to demolish the wharf. This makes it sound like maybe we are investing, maintaining and in the wharf. But yeah, happy to leave it as it is, but just this is quite the high level that noting that people will kind of skim over the CD. This is the first time the wharf's mentioned and it says we're looking at prioritising, investing and maintaining these assets. But you read the detail, we're demolishing it, proposing to demolish it.
I mean, I could find 100 other examples where we could potentially, change words around but I just think that it's pretty clear, and we've got to look at this in the context of everything else we're doing. The demolition of Batoni Wharf is probably the one thing that everyone is aware we are looking to do. So, but is there any other comments? I mean, if there's
so there's been a lot of conversation, including from all of you, around Batoni Wharf. In the document, it's quite clear. In the toolkits you have, it's quite clear. And I think there's lots of posters around town that indicate what we might do. You'll recall that there was some people saying, why do both options say demolition when you might end up doing something else? And we explained that that's the current decisions you've taken. At your request, as a collective, recently you said, is there a way in the document that we could look at indicating that within the current levels of investment, there might be other options? And the answer was, we said, no, you've made the decisions you've made, but we will at least try here to give a level of assurance, because there was some mistrust that we would not look at anything openly. And this is our attempt to do this. And I would just say around this infographic is, the more and more we add words in, the more indigestible it becomes. So by definition, there's a shorthand which has got detail elsewhere in the document. But Councillor Dyer, that was our attempt at your request to not move the decision on, but give a level of, we'll look at how we're prioritising.
Councillor Shaw.
I'm just wondering about this particular one, page 393, and you might be quite right about reducing the amount of text. We're currently all breathing a big sigh of relief about coming out of on the Eastern Hutt Road at the moment. Of course, we know that there's a bit of work to come in the northern part of the Eastern Hutt Road, and I wonder if that needs to be flagged in some way. Happy if you're happy, fine with this text as it is.
You, Mr. Mayor, what I suggest we do with all of these comments is use, should you make the decision we're asking you to make, use the delegation that you would be giving me to make any minor changes that I am able to make, of course, bearing in mind that we've had our audit opinion and we don't want to jeopardise that. So if that's all right with you, Mr. Mayor, we'll bear these comments in mind and see what we can do.
Deputy Mayor. Other questions, comments? Okay, going to go around, check. We'll go Councillor Brown, then Councillor Salinger.
Is that working? Oh, yeah. My comment is a lot of the information and requests that we put in have been changed. You can see in the document that the changes have been made, but also my eye is always on the majority of the majority. And so you're trying to cut a balance that the things that we're most interested in, we want that detail up front. But I think that's the part that we play. If we ask the population of Te Awa Kairangi how many are reading this back to back, I'm not sure how many there would be. So the way that you have displayed the water infrastructure is great. It's really good. People can pick those front bits up and get an understanding of what it means, what the challenges are, and where our costs are spread. That certainly wasn't in other plans. So I just want to give feedback that we really try and keep it at that broad level, because the broader we are, the bigger the catchment that we will have of people then in their areas of interest diving into the detail or connecting with us or going to one of the hui. But if we really want to get that broadest amount, it's the way that you've displayed it at that broadest level, and people by all means can just dig down and then ask more questions. So my comment is, I think it's looking really great and you've struck a really good balance.
Councillor Salinger.
Mr. Mayor, I just heard you use the word comment. So is this our opportunity to comment on the resolutions before us, or are we still in kind of questions?
It was more sort of any comments around higher level sort of feedback on the document for the team to go away with. Yep. Yep. No, if there is none, then we will move through to the recommendations, which are in front of us. So they are on page 5 of the agenda, and they are 1 through to 10. And we've just got some edits which reflect, which, do you want to pull them up on screen? All pretty process driven, just in regards to referencing the supplementary agenda and memorandum. So I will move the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mitchell. Any discussion? Councillor Briggs, Councillor Dyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Similar comment as Councillor Brown. Just want to acknowledge, as someone that's neurodiverse and has dyslexia, this is the easiest long-term plan consultation document that I've read as a councillor. The infographics that are being used really paint out the picture of what the intention is of council without having to read all of the detail. And for those that aren't neurodiverse, I'm sure in our wider community will be enjoying and appreciating being able to read a document visually as well as the words on the page. So thank you for the work that's been done. It's much appreciated.
Okay, Councillor Dyer.
Kia ora. Yeah, firstly, I just want to thank officers as well. I think the process we've been through has been amazing. The amount of times it's been in front of us has meant that today kind of almost seems a bit strange that there aren't more questions, there aren't more changes, particularly from me. But it's because we've had so many opportunities to see this. So obviously we've had the interest of a bit more time than the last LTP we did with COVID doing its thing. So yeah, just really want to thank officers for the process we've been through to date. I do particularly want to talk about the infographic we've got. We've taken something that was really great from our last LTP and we've made it amazing. Like the amount of people that have already seen this, and it's not even public yet, super public, is just such a good visualization of just what where the funds are going, where rates are going, and just the challenges that we face. I do wish that the savings that we have gone through, like that's really been what we've been working over the last 6 months. I wish they were a bit more headline in there, but I think you're right, Councillor Brown, that's our job to really articulate to the public the tough steps we've had to go through, because there's been lots of them, and to sort of articulate that really well in this document would be pages and pages long. So I think it's our job to talk about those, but the headline ones are in there in that appendix, which is great. And the final one I do want to raise, because I've raised it before when it wasn't this significant, is just the minor works building consent fee. It continually creeps up, and it's now being proposed to go from $700 to $1,000. Inherently, it's in the name. These are minor works. We recently installed a toilet that cost $200 and something. The plumber was $300 and something, and the consent to install it would now cost you over $1,000 to install it. I think when we're talking about minor works, these are minor things that arguably you could get away with installing a toilet without any knowledge. When the costs start creeping up to this, I do question whether people will just not get a consent. They are minor, but I think it's something we do need to look at. Obviously, the higher consents have hours going into it, but I just think this is one space that's been creeping up. I think when we first started talking about, when this was first on my radar, it was 300-ish, and then it went up by another 250, and now it's going from 700 to over 1,000. So I just think it's something we need to keep our eye on because it is creeping up. But yeah, thank you very much to everyone involved.
Okay, any other comment? Councillor Stallinger.
Thanks. I do endorse those comments that have been made. Just congratulating and thanking the staff and the wider teams, including our auditors, for what has been in many regards excellent process, and I too like the documents before us generally. As far as the process is concerned, I just have one request for consideration for future rounds, and that would be that we get to see the draft budgets before we have our final workshop. We only got to see the budgets themselves when they came before this committee. And so it was too late to really have a discussion around some things which I saw for the first time in there. And I think if I was able to do that, have that discussion in a workshop setting, it would have gone a long way to perhaps easing me into and being able to just sound out my questions that I have. Unfortunately, didn't have that opportunity. Beyond that, I just will say I'll be voting against recommendations 4 and 5. I'd just like to explain why. Councillors will, and you, Mr. Mayor, will be aware that I have voted against the rates increases proposed early on in this process, and explain my reasons for that, and put on the table an alternative, I suppose, which didn't receive the support. But at our last meeting, I did vote in favour of the materials proceeding for consultation, despite still having some questions, which I had put to staff in advance of that meeting in February. And I was happy to receive that information after, that meeting itself. But now having been declined what I consider basic information to support what amounts to some 55 million over and above market increases in terms of our staff costs, recognising we all, including me, were strongly in favour of fairly paying staff, but that extra 55 million, I just don't have information to be able to feel comfortable in putting that out to the community as part of this document. I find it quite concerning that I don't even know, for example, what is the increase in staff numbers built into that budget between this year and next year. I can make a guess. If there's 55 million extra, I could use the calculation the Mayor did in good faith when we were talking about possibly reducing the budget, and that would equate to about 80 staff. Now, I don't think it is that high, but I just don't have the information, so I'm left feeling quite uncomfortable that I've been unable to do my job as an elected representative, having an oversight of the finances that have gone into this plan. So I'll just leave it there, but could you please take items 4 and 5 separately, because I'll be voting against.
We can do that. Okay. Any other comments? Just to make a couple of, I suppose, bigger picture comments of the environment that we're currently in. As all of you will know, I've got a role within Local Government New Zealand, which has meant that I suppose I've been quite involved in looking at the global picture of the challenges that councils are facing up and down New Zealand. And just 2 weeks ago, LGNZ commissioned a report from an independent report from Brad Olsen, who's the principal economist from Infometrics, to really understand what was driving some of the significant pressures that councils were facing. And while the context in each city and district and region can be quite different, those challenges in regards to the cost pressures were very similar. And what it did demonstrate is that from around December 2021, when the previous numbers for long-term plans were developed, or 2020, December might have been 2020, sorry, were developed, that the actual increase, particularly when it comes to civil construction, had gone up 20% higher than what was predicted back then. So what that translated to was, your roads, your bridges, your sewage plants, all in the sort of mid-30s, 30% increases across the board in regards to maintaining and the capital budgets as well. Of course, back then they would have predicted a level of inflationary increase into the long-term plan, but it was 20% higher than what was predicted back then. Alongside that, as was mentioned by Councillor Mitchell, higher interest costs have also been a huge fixed cost, which is unavoidable for councils, particularly councils that over the last 10, 15, 20 years have increased their debt to avoid or to look to keep rates increases low. Again, with good intentions, but the unintended consequence of that causing a real pinch point right now with a significant increase in interest and borrowing costs. Insurance is also another key cost, and we've seen that with the information that's been presented to us as well. And when I look at our total budget, particularly when it comes to the capital budget, 83% of our program is in water and transport. So it is really difficult, as we know from looking line by line through things, to drive that cost down or that debt down, unless we want to make serious cuts into what is already a $52 billion deficit across New Zealand when it comes to local government infrastructure. So I suppose the bigger conversation in my mind that we need to have, and you will see that through the media and through what councils are saying at the moment, is a fairer and more sustainable way of funding and financing long-term plans from government. There is a serious need for reform, and I fear that if we don't have that change, if we don't sort out how we deliver our water infrastructure, if we don't sort out how we grapple with the infrastructure challenges generally we've got, there will be a number of councils who will be in a really difficult position, because either they will have totally unaffordable rates increases for their residents, or that investment simply won't happen, and we will see a decline in services and all of the flow-on effects from that. Mayor Brown in Auckland has put out some pretty strong comments today, and I think I absolutely endorse them actually in what he said around government paying their fair share when it comes to rates on government property, GST back currently on rates that our residents pay. Also, I think other mechanisms like congestion charging as an option for metropolitan areas, bed taxes, and simple things like, for example, all of the additional water investment we're putting in. If we were to simply get the GST back on that and ring fence it and put it into water, that would help with some of the pressures we're facing right now. So those are all active conversations, I think, that we need to be having in the broader context of what we're grappling with in this LTP. So to speak specifically to obviously our plan, thank you everyone for your efforts in pulling this together. It has been a real challenge of balancing that affordability versus not kicking the can down the road. And I think that there has been a lot of really goodwill in trying to pull this together. I suppose if I look at from a rates perspective, which will be the first thing a number of our residents look to, for the metropolitan area at the very least, while we are proposing a 16.9% rates increase, that is actually the lowest in the metropolitan region. And I think we've been able to, not by much, we're all kind of pretty high, but what I think that demonstrates is we have worked really hard to try and pull back on the edges where we can, without, again, kicking the can down the road on some of these other issues. So when you look at those increases, you will see, I think, that we're all in the same difficult position that many of our colleagues, not just across the country, but as you can see regionally, are having to grapple with as well. So I'll leave it there and I will put it to the vote. We'll take all items except 4 and 5 first. So I'll move those. Do I have a second? I've already got a seconder. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Moving items 4 and 5. All those in favour say aye. Those against no. Declare that carried. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And we'll move now through to the item 5B, which is the reserves investment strategy. And the one thing I was remiss in saying, of course, is really looking forward to being able to engage our community on this. And I know I've said that a few times now, and a lot of councillors feel the same way. We've done a lot of work. It's really important that we get the voice from our community, but also paint that wider context of the difficult position we're in so we can get some really constructive feedback on what we can and what we can't do within the parameters we've got. I'll pass it over to Andrea and also Jeff, and over to you. Thanks.
Kia ora tātou through you, Mr Mayor. First of all, apologies from Nicole Purifoy from the Parks and Reserves team, who has been leading this work and who you would normally expect to see talking to this paper, but she's unwell today and unable to be here. But we do have Jeff Canham from Thrive Spaces and Places, who's supported this work right from the start, so should be able to answer any questions that you might have. We'll take the paper and the document as read. The Reserves Investment Strategies has been in front of elected members several times over the past 6 months as it's been developed, so hopefully you're all very familiar with it. Since the draft version that you saw before Christmas, there have been a few changes, mainly to the proposed project list, and that's been due to a number of things, including feedback that we've had, and these changes are noted in the paper points 8A to F. The project list currently groups projects in relation to the framework, and so they're grouped by type of project. So in implementing this work, we would align it to our strategic approach, which is to be place-based and holistic. So where possible, we would group projects that are in the same neighbourhood together, so that we can have one community conversation about the broader opportunity rather than doing each project on its own merits. So the way that they are presented in the table would look different to how we would implement them. As we note in the paper, the projects are all reasonably high-level concepts at this stage, and we would come back to the Community Culture and Partnership Committee for guidance as they're further developed. And a reminder that this project list is also revisited every 3 years in line with the LTP, and so there is an opportunity with each LTP to reset the project list in alignment with Council's priorities. So we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Andrea. Any questions? Okay, going to Councillor Shaw.
Thanks for this. I can see a lot of work has gone into this and appreciate everything you've done. My question's on page 99, and just for my own clarity, just questioning, is a tighter track Old Farm track development, is that one that we talked about earlier that links with Rokawa Street in Stokes Valley. And I asked that question because there doesn't seem to be much in the way of any green space development in the northern part of Stokes Valley, and especially around Rokawa Street where there's 100 and something units gone in one street. So I'm just checking if that links with Rokawa Street.
I believe it is. I think that was the one that was noted in the paper that went to the CCP committee around the opportunity to look at that link. And I believe that is the one, but I will check and make sure.
If you can just throw Rokawa Street loop or something, link or something like that in there would be helpful. Thank you.
Any other questions? Councillor Dye and Councillor Mitchell.
Kia ora. My question was about one of these items that has changed, and it's the skate park. When that last came to us, both times last year, we sort of were told that it's still on the list, still sort of going ahead. NZTA is relocating Avalon, but longer term, we are looking at keeping one here in the CBD, but this is now saying we're removing that from the project list. Just wondering what the rationale behind, if you've got a bit more commentary about it.
So I think the last project list we weren't as far advanced in terms of Avalon and what might be delivered through the Avalon project and the kind of scale and significance of the skate park there. What we do have in this list is also a new item of $1.6 million of around skatable features in the landscaping for the Riverlink project. And so the thinking is that actually the focus at the moment would be on delivering the skatable landscape as part of the Riverlink project, and later on council could consider whether it felt it still needed another significant skate facility once we've seen how Avalon goes and how the skatable landscape evolves.
Is that being communicated through the Avalon engagement that we're doing? Like, there's obviously been multiple rounds, but the first rounds of that, I definitely saw that we were, hey, this is a new skate park, but there will be a new one in the CBD. Obviously that thinking's now changed. Has that been articulated through those engagements?
It probably hasn't been, because this paper is just coming now to this committee. So this list is the first time that this list has been in front of council, but we can communicate that through the future engagement.
Councillor Mitchell.
Thank you. I'm perhaps not quite as across this as members of the committee, which I don't serve on, the Communities Committee, and I can see on the timeline, it's on the top of page 36, that this has been worked on for the best part of a year at least in the committee, and it talks about internal consultation, conversations with stakeholders. What I can't see on the list is any public input to this draft. And I know it's going out to consultation as a document, unfortunately, as part of our long-term plan, where there's an awful lot of other information people are intended to wrap their heads around. So I was just wondering, A, if there has been any public input that I've overlooked into generating this draft, B, if there will be further consultations separate from the long-term plan.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, kia ora koutou, ko Jeff Canham, tukingoa. In terms of public consultation, no, not before we brought it to council, of course. But in terms of the way we were informed, we met with obviously mana whenua throughout the process, and we have some very valuable insights as a result of that, and also the development community. So in terms of the people who would be probably engaging at the coalface the most with a policy such as this and paying into it, we had some valuable insights from those stakeholder workshops.
The other thing I would add is that a number of other pieces of work have inputted to this, so pieces of community engagement that we've done that had information on it around assets, including some we did right at the start of this work, which was more broadly about assets, but the relevant themes have been brought through to this, and other informing pieces of work, I think, including things like the Nuka Ora sports fields and sports courts reports. So there have been a lot of inputs to it that have captured community voice or need.
Thank you. And one of those things I was going to comment on actually that's included in here is the Places and Spaces engagement survey. It was really interesting. This is on page 59. To see the places and spaces that are important to our residents in their everyday life. The most popular one was beaches, followed by bushwalks, and then down a bit to parks and sports ground, and then recreational cycle trails. I was wondering how that has informed the spending plan. It certainly doesn't reflect the way we've spent money traditionally, where beaches are nominated as number 1 and bushwalks as number 2, and then kind of parks and reserves a bit further down the list.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. This is very valuable information through the survey. This project's actually taken a look at an evidence base of what you currently have and where it's provided and how much do you currently have for these activities to take place on it. And I guess the gap analysis shows the things that you may choose to prioritise to address those gaps, and this fund would provide I guess a non-rate revenue funding mechanism to address that. In terms of the activities that people do on that land, yes, this is really valuable information for the recreation needs and the pastimes that people pursue. And I guess in terms of the green infrastructure that you'd be looking to invest in, this overall investment strategy would set the scene for where you might choose to prioritise and where in your district, in your city.
Thank you. And I just have one more question. There's a really great appendix of open space provision typology framework, and really interested to see what it says about neighbourhood reserves. I think about the couple of neighbourhood reserves nearest to me. They're both quite large. One of them has half a dozen trees on it, but neither of them even has a path through them currently. They've just been grass for as long as I've lived in my neighbourhood. When I look through to the project list, it names individual projects at individual places. Neither of those 2 parks are on the list. I just wonder what our approach is to putting basic amenity into all of our parks rather than these kind of featured projects that are in the project list.
The Reserves Investment Strategy project list is one part of the work that Council will be doing over the next 10 years. So there's also, in the asset management plan, there are a number of other pieces of work that we'll be doing that are not funded through these contributions because these need to be specifically to criteria that meets these projects. So it's possible, and I won't say it's absolutely, I'm sure, it's possible that there are some of those other projects are within the current asset management plan, but we can certainly have a look at that.
Deputy Mayor Lewis.
Thank you. Just following on from what you said, Andrea, it might be that current asset management plan where the projects are that my question relates to. And it was going back to, I think, 2021. There was a project list of a whole lot of jobs, and in particular, down at Petone Beach, the toilets that were identified to be done haven't yet been done, and I don't see them anywhere on this list. There's other toilets have stepped over it or been flushed over.
Is that the Bay Street toilets?
It's all of those toilets down there. There's McEwen Park's not in a good state, all of that.
So those would be covered. These are specifically about things that are new projects. Some projects that are in here are in the asset management plan, and they're funded if they can meet the criteria for growth. Those other projects will be in our asset management plan, and they will be renewed or repaired or replaced in terms of their own specific asset management plan. So we can certainly tell you what those plans are for individual assets if you want to let us know, but that is the guiding document that tells us when things should be replaced and what condition they're in and the timing of that. I think we know that we've had an historic underinvestment in assets. It's been really clear through the assets review. A lot of our assets are not in a state that we would ideally want them to be in, and it's going to be a long road to put that right, but we're starting down that road.
Follow-up question. So what you're doing now is different, or the things that are in there are going to be project through, actioned, but this lens is over new projects?
This lens is looking at the contributions, financial contributions, to respond to growth.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Andrea. You've got in there the drivers of our strategy. Is that going? The drivers for our strategy: population growth and intensification. At what weighting has that been by suburb? Because you can clearly see that Wainui-a-Mata has since 2021 the change had 925 new households. The next closest suburb has been around 400. So it's really carried the weight of densification and the struggle that it has for the infrastructure that supports that.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, one of the things we've done too is done some case studies to help inform elected members around how that might look in particular parts of the city. Perhaps we could do that. We could look at maybe page 64. We went to neighbourhood reserves and accepting that all areas aren't the same. So, for example, the valley floor is pretty intensively developed, not a lot of new green space to turn into a park, if you like, whereas Wainui might have that luxury. But that doesn't work against Wainui. So in terms of that page 64, what we've done is a little case study around neighbourhood reserve provision, and it does show that there's gaps in terms of the distance between neighbourhood reserves. So they're a small park that people may use if it's close enough. It's typically walk to. You'd be comfortable letting a child ride there on a bike, you'd hope. And it would provide for the things you might expect, like a playground or a place to play, social imperatives, that kind of thing. And then on page 65, I guess some gaps are identified. And again, using Wainui, like a low to minimal provision of those types of park, despite all that green space, which is surprising. And I think to the earlier point by Councillor Mitchell, underdeveloped neighbourhood sites. And where growth occurs and might be able to fund that, then this is the nexus we're trying to draw through a strategy in response to growth. So it's not rate revenue funded, growth has a link to that and you can fund that. And that modelling is pretty critical, and I believe it can get down to that detail, but it's a detailed discussion beyond this meeting. Those design phases aren't in place yet, they would come later, but this provides you a fund outside of rates to address growth impact.
Thank you.
Okay, I am conscious we are past 2 o'clock, which is when council meeting was supposed to start, so Kate has given me a nudge. So if there's nothing else that is pertinent to this document being able to go out for consultation, then we'll move to the recommendations. Okay, we'll pop them up on the screen. I do have some amendments just to reflect actually what Andrea did say in regards to, I suppose, more of a implementation plan, but it's really important, I think, for all of us, particularly in working in our communities, to be able to make sure we are pulling different aspects together when we've got different projects within in local areas. So I've just got some amendments there and recommendation 5. So if people are comfortable with that, no questions. Okay, so I'll move the recommendations. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Tupou. Any discussion? Councillor Tupou, then Councillor Barrett.
Thank you, Your Worship. It's good to be back. And I don't often get excited about plans, Mr. Mayor, but this investment strategy addresses a lot of concerns that are shared by community in terms of better connectedness, safety, and I'm excited to see the cultural heritage aspects in there. Having walked in the pharmacy just the other day, I saw a petition for a cemetery in Wainuiomata. But, this creates a platform that our residents can come to and see their aspirations out there in the open. So, it's exciting to see. I think some of us have been lobbied by, our sporting communities and our kids in Tamariki who want better quality grounds in which to play. So it's really great to see that this planning's come to fruition and that we can put this forward in the long-term planning. Kia ora.
Councillor Barrett.
Kia ora, Mr. Mayor. Recently I attended the skate park meeting at Avalon Park, and comments were made it's wonderful to see that council is listening to the people and that we are needing places to play and to do our sports other than things like housing and so forth, which is equally as important. The other remark that made was this looks too good to be true. However, biggest remarks were made by the skaters is that it would be great to see when Riverlink comes along that facilities were made for skaters. However, if Avalon is done the way that it's proposed to do with the plans that were portrayed and so forth, they would be very, very happy to wait, because this is something that the Hutt has never had before. So thank you.
Councillor Mitchell.
Yeah, I just did want to comment that I really enjoyed this strategy as well. It is an exciting plan for our city. It may not be to a surprise to some that I really love to see things like the focus outcome on spaces that prioritise nature. We often talk about people and their needs, but really great to see nature being included in there. There are a lot of great projects on that projects list, and I think most of our residents will be able to see something near them to get excited about over the next 10 years. And good to hear that that other point I made about bringing our neighbourhood reserves up to a kind of basic level can be addressed elsewhere, if not through this plan here. So congratulations on the work. It's been, you can see it's been a very thorough approach and identified some really good projects for future investment. Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Yeah, again, thank you for the work that you've done on this. It has been a real challenge. We have been very close to it as councillors when it's difficult times, and we've had enormous changes in the last 5 years in our communities. I mentioned Wainuiamata, and we've had a massive change with the densification that was reliant on good public transport that we haven't necessarily got, which is not a council issue, but a massive move in population, and there's a lot of confidence in Wainuiamata, in big part for the regeneration of Queen Street. It's given a lot of confidence to Wainuiamata. What we just have to be mindful of is being able to have place-based opportunities there for that big influx of not only new population, but the current population, and encouraging people to stay, play, shop in our communities is a good focus for the Reserves investment strategy. So thank you.
I think I did see Councillor Brown's car at the KFC drive-through, the new KFC. It's an example of... Okay. Any other comments? No? Great. Okay, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Those against, no. Declare that carried. Thank you very much, guys. Cool. Okay. Moving through questions. We've received no questions, so we won't do our closing karakia. We'll just leave it open, and we'll just take a 2-minute recess, so back at 2:10, and we'll get council underway. Thanks.